This is RIFamily from Warwick, Rhode Island.
And we listen to the Letterpod.
High and dry trails with few scratchy branches, backpacks all covered with pins and cloth patches. First finder prizes make hearts soar with wings. These are a few of my favorite things. Lovely white vistas and hiking on moors, sunshiny meadows while tracking down spores, silent dark nights with fire tracks in the trees. These are unboxing things that have me pleased. Plastic containers with lids that have latches, ink pads and logbooks in colors that matches, screw-top containers for Gilbert to test. These are the boxing things that I like best. When the gouge bite, when the bee stings, when I have to work, I think of all my letterbox things, so I don't go berserk. Chatter and silly stuff, lamers and yakking, reading of Tortuga's crazy backpacking, finding some cooties that aren't a disease. Thankfully now I can block LTCs. Noses in field guides, learning tree species, hiking while reading, you step in dog feces, slip in my puddle, land on your tail. These are the things boxers face on the trail. Solving such puzzles won't get me frustrated, or finding the boxes a blue diamond rated. Ink on my fingers so surely will stain. Please one more box, so hold back the rain. When I'm searching, when I'm planting, when I carve some rubber, I'll check with the crazies who post on AQ. There's something brand new to discover.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Letterpod. I'm your host, Jackbear. You just listened to the Letterboxer's Favorite Things, written by Wasamattayu, Sits and Knits, and Idhunna, and recorded by Orion and performed by Ann Tucker. Get settled in because we have a full episode for you. We have the newest installment of Dear Crabby, an interview about Letterbox Trading Cards with Mama Cash, and a new contest called the Stampeaz Stumper. But up first, we have a special fairy tale from the trail with Orion and Large Marge.
Hi, this is Orion with a fairy tale from the trail. With the help of Large Marge, I'd like to share the tale of Little Red Hiding Hood. Little Red had earned her nickname. Sure, she was tiny and had bright red hair, but Little Red was also the name of a firecracker, and Maxine Waters was as lively and bright as any firecracker ever made. She also had a powerful curiosity, and craft projects had a surefire way of satisfying her creative mind. Her two favorite ways of making things were with her Girl Scout troop and at her grandmother's house. Little Red would combine the two every Wednesday after school. With her troop, she'd learn new and fun projects, and then she'd head straight to Grammy K's to share what she had learned. Grammy K had been knitting for over 50 years and was showing Little Red the ins and outs of knitting and purling. Little Red was a fast learner and was knitting a pink fuzzy scarf. One Wednesday, Little Red's troop leader introduced the girls to letterboxing. That sparked Little Red's fuse like nothing had before. At last, she found something that combined all her favorite things: drawing, puzzle solving, and hiking, plus so much more. She ran to Grammy K's after this important discovery and described letterboxing in great detail to her grandmother. They both decided to carve a stamp, make a logbook, and plant their first boxes together. What Little Red didn't tell Grammy K was her first letterbox was going to honor her grandmother. One day a package arrived and Little Red's mother said, "This is for you. It looks like it came from Grammy K." Little Red ripped into the wrapping paper, revealing a beautiful red knit hoodie. "Oh, I love it!" she shouted as she twirled around, modeling her new treasure. Then the idea for her letterbox popped into her head. Little bits of rubber flew through the air as she carved away excitedly. Grammy K would call Little Red to see how she was coming along. Little Red would only say, "Mine's a surprise." Once Little Red had stitched up the spine of her logbook and popped that and the stamp in her lock-and-lock box, off she went to her grandmother's house. The most direct route to Grammy K's was through the woods. This normally wasn't a problem, but recently there had been rumors of a wolf prowling that area. She decided not to tell her mom of her traveling plans. Why worry her? I'll just keep my eyes open, thought Little Red. Besides, she had already decided to plant her tribute box there and present the clues to Grammy K this afternoon. Little Red had 2 hiding places in mind and had already written up 2 sets of clues. As she cut through the woods, she failed to notice the shadowy canine figure watching her from the rock outcropping.
What's she up to this week? Usually she just goes straight to her grandmother's house without stopping, but now she's hiding things.
This perplexed our carnivorous friend and distracted him from his luncheon plans. Eventually the growling in his stomach brought his thoughts back to food.
Instead of snacking on this small morsel, perhaps I'll hightail it to Grammy K's and have a 2-for-1 special.
And with that, the wolf was gone. Little Red had completed her task and continued on the short hike down the trail to her grandmother's house. Meanwhile, Grammy K had spotted the wolf approaching and scooted into her craft room closet and locked the door. Just in time, too, as the wolf bounded up the stairs and slithered past the front door.
What the heck? The old lady's not here,
said the wolf, a bit confused.
Well, I'll have to settle for the small appetizer heading this way.
The hairy beast then pawed through Grammy K's clothes closet and hurriedly disguised himself as Little Red's beloved grandmother. As soon as the wolf slipped into Grammy K's bed, Little Red came into the house. "Grammy K, I've got something exciting to give you." The wolf instantly became intrigued.
"Darling, I'm in my bedroom. I'm not feeling well, but I still want to hear everything,"
the wolf said, trying to sound like a 60-year-old woman. "It's about my letterbox," Little Red started to say as she entered her grandmother's bedroom. Immediately, she knew this was hardly her grandmother. The platinum blonde wig was the first giveaway. Grammy K hadn't worn that in years. Plus all that hair. Yuck! Realizing she had to outwit this deluded creature, she decided to play along. "Why, Grammy, what big ears you have!" exclaimed Little Red.
"All the better to hear all about this letterbox you started to mention,"
responded the wolf, in his best falsetto voice. So she described her planting adventure in the woods. Then she continued, "But Grammy, what big eyes you have!"
"All the better to see what this letterbox looks like. Where is it?"
inquired the now very interested wolf. Deciding not to mention what a big mouth the impostor had, Little Red reached into her red hoodie pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. Thrusting it into the wolf's big paws, she said, "Here are the clues, Grammy. I made this box just for you, and there's a very special first finder's prize."
"A prize?"
said the wolf. Suddenly, the gnawing in his stomach stopped, and he leapt out of bed. The wolf, also having a powerful curiosity, ran towards the woods with the clues in his hand and never even looked back. By now, Little Red had begun searching for Grammy K. When she opened the craft supply closet, there was her grandmother sitting on a small chair knitting. "Is he gone?" Grammy K asked. "Yes, gone for good," answered Little Red. "What did you do?" her grandmother asked in a concerned voice. "Don't worry, Grammy. I had 2 sets of clues, and I gave him the wrong ones. He won't ever bother us again," she said with a sly grin. "I'm afraid to ask," said Grammy K, hesitating a moment. "But where did you send him?" "Oh, just down behind the shooting range and next to the fur factory," Little Red answered, smiling broadly. "Good girl," answered Grammy approvingly. "By the way, what did you name your letterbox?" "Little Red Hiding Hood," she laughed.
It's time for another question for Dear Crabby. Dear Crabby, what do we do about these boxers that contact you saying they can't find the location, even though they've followed the clues? They say, there is no bridge at the soccer fields, but the clue says the wooden bridge near the soccer fields. Signed, Grumpy.
Dear Grumpy, Miss Crabby's opinion on this matter is that individuals who assume they are never at fault deciphering clues are destined to make a bumbling dolt of themselves, and I vociferously want to tell them so. Although the urge is to bang my crustacean cranium against a wall and scream, "You blithering idiot!" I restrain my pincer claws until I am able to respond nicely. If, after a prolonged cooling-off period, I still can't think of a kind response, I choose not to reply at all. In making a response, this crustacean believes the shortest answer is often the best. Perhaps simply, you may want to reread the clue. It is so very unfortunate that some individuals don't look at clues by nature as what they are by definition, something that serves to guide or direct in the solution of a problem or mystery. The best are filled with nuances and challenges that make rereading them a necessity. And most importantly, I then veer off the high road and blow off steam with my crusty cronies.
Thank you, Miss Crabby. Next up, my interview with Mama Cash from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, about the newest craze, Letterbox Trading Cards. I'm on the phone with Mama Cash. Mama Cash, let's start with, what is a Letterbox Trading Card?
I think that most people are probably familiar with some type of trading cards, sports trading cards, and even some of your listeners might be familiar with artist trading cards, which are small works of art that are traded among artists. But a letterbox trading card is similar to an artist trading card, but they're not exactly the same. A basic LTC or a letterbox trading card has some of the same elements, and you would look at that and you say, that's an ATC. But the dimensions are the same. They're 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, like the ATCs, and they are traded and not sold, just like the ATCs. But one distinction is that while an artist trading card might contain a hand-carved, hand-stamped image as part of the card design, that is one of the integral parts of the letterbox trading cards. That somewhere in the design there's an image that's been hand-carved and hand-stamped into the design. And then on the back of the card, a creator would either sign or print or stamp his or her trail name, and possibly a real name, but that's optional. The title of the LTC, if it doesn't appear on the front design, would be put on the back, and also a number, if it's part of an edition, would be included.
What are editions? Are there different kinds of editions?
Well, there's if you create a unique letterbox trading card, that would be considered an original. And if you had a set of cards that were identical in design, and you had those such that, say, you were only going to create 20 of those would be called limited editions. And I think most of the artist trading cards are either done either as originals or as limited editions. But with the letterbox trading cards, we also create unlimited editions where you'd have a set of cards, the same card, they're identical in design, and you just say, well, I'll just create these until I get tired of creating, and you don't set yourself with a cap of a certain number of cards. And then if you have a set of cards that are about the same theme, but they're different, you would have a series. So let's say I decided I was going to create a set on the days of the week, and I wanted to do it around the theme of here we go around the mulberry bush or something, and I might have, this is the way we wash the clothes on Monday or whichever day that fell on. I would have those 7 different days, and then I would consider that a series, no matter how many, if it was just originals or limited editions or unlimited editions. But that's those are the different types that we kind of set up from the start.
How did this idea for LTCs come about?
It depends on whether or not you're asking how it came about on Atlas Quest or if you're asking generally, because on Atlas Quest, there at the end of February of last year, there was a letterboxer named Dragonflies who asked the question, does anybody on here trade ATCs? Well, I had only recently heard about what an ATC was, but a lot of people didn't know at all, and so questions came in, and she elaborated and described it basically the same way that I've found on other sites that like the Cedar Seed site and others on Wikipedia where they describe the artist trading cards. And so she was just kind of throwing it out as, a question whether or not anybody ever traded those. And we just started a dialogue on the boards, and she elaborated on that. And then she said, if we did it, we could even call it Letterbox Trading Cards. And so I took her information and did a little quick research and kind of adjusted the idea of an ATC to fit the purposes of letterboxers, and put that on my webpage, and then emailed her and said, is this what you're talking about? And she was excited, and so I said, well, let me set up a tracker, and we'll just give it a try. And we basically were going to follow the method that some of the postal letterboxers had followed when they did the cards. I don't know if you ever saw the cards for the State Bird series or the State Insect series, the presidents, and basically they would... we were going to follow that same model that we can talk about a little later, but it was, where everybody created a whole set of cards and traded them. And so we set up a tracker, and we tried it, and it went beautifully. We called it the Maiden Voyage, and we traded and kind of got excited, and then Batty Girl jumped in, and she set up several trades after that. But it still didn't, I could tell that the interest was growing, but it was something that you'd almost have to post again on a board for somebody to happen to stumble across that idea again. It wasn't on the main boards, and it wasn't, it wasn't something that was real widespread, but it was growing. And so we wrote Ryan. Once I realized that there were so many, we put them in the others category, because that was the only place it wasn't a letterbox, it wasn't a postal, it was just its own thing, and so we put it under other. Mm-hmm. But then they became so numerous that I just emailed Ryan and asked him if there was any way he would ever consider a row for LTCs the way he had done for cooties and postals and virtuals. And he said he didn't think that it would, he didn't know, but he would kind of keep an eye on it and see how it grew. And I asked him, I said, how many would it take before you decided you would do that? He said, I kind of when I get a gut feeling about it. And I thought, oh, great. So I really didn't. I just expected it to kind of live on the other board, in the other section forever.
Right.
And the week before Thanksgiving this year, on the 21st, he announced that there was a LTC chat board. I mean, not the chat, one of the message boards. And before that even got seen by most people the next day, he had already created the category for it. So I got lots of email, and we were all getting excited because now, and then it exploded. Once it, because anybody who opened up and looked at their profile would see that on there and wonder what that was.
Right, that's when I first noticed and started to pay attention.
Right. So there were lots of questions and lots of excitement.
So this idea really started on Atlas Quest then?
Well, it started on Atlas Quest for a lot of newcomers. It was the first that I had ever considered doing that, and it was something that Dragonflies was just kind of tossing out as an idea, would somebody want to trade this kind of thing? And she really expected some resistance, I think, from those that are traditional letterboxers only, that don't venture into any of the non-traditional, things that are not actually get out in letterbox type letterboxing. Right. And so I saw on the help section someone had mentioned that I think in 2003 there was an art group that traded ATCs. I think it was on a Yahoo list that they did that, and they used their signature stamp. So it wasn't really a novel idea, but we had no idea that they had done that. And then art miniatures, I mean, those have been, from what I understand now, a real historical thing, that there were even some that would use them as business cards historically. And then I think there was someone in Switzerland that they've credited as popularizing the size, the 2.5 by 3.5 ATCs. And then I know Webfoot and a group traded just the same way that we're doing these with the rubber stamped images. It might have even been, 8 to 10 years ago when I spoke with her, that she was telling me about that, because I wanted to make sure that I had not, people were talking about the the role that I played in just the introduction of this, really was not as big a role, and I didn't want to have offended anybody by thinking that it was original to me.
So there was historical precedent for this before it was called a letterbox trading card.
Right. I know they only called them ATCs then, but they must have had a good time trading their signature stamps, because I have a feeling a lot of them didn't even know each other personally.
Certainly you've been credited as being one of the first persons involved in letterbox trading cards, because you were one of the first people to have a website devoted to information about letterbox trading cards.
As a letterbox trading card specifically, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but what had happened, it was kind of like, Dragonflies, announced I have a seed, and I just said, well, let's plant the thing, And then we did that, and it grew, and Ryan said, well, let's just put it on the windowsill. It looks so nice, and that's how it went. And I also really, did a lot of asking on, the part of trying to, with that email dialogue, trying to see if Ryan would consider making it a standard part of his website. So that's really what I did. It was not so much of the creative end of the idea. It was more organizing it and trying to get it to work through the Atlas Quest, that framework.
Let me change topics a little bit, and let's talk about, for people who maybe haven't traded a letterbox trading card yet, what does an LTC look like? What are some of the things that you would expect to see on an LTC?
Okay, the most typical thing is its size. We mentioned that already, that they're 2.5 by 3.5 inches, and that can be. Some people have asked, does it have to be, vertical or horizontal? And that really doesn't matter. But one of the things that I've seen, and there may be more categories in this, but I kind of tend to lump techniques into 3 different types of categories. And one is kind of an art media category where there's a lot of, even the artist trading cards, they're like something you would find in a tiny gallery, what you think of if you were to go into an art gallery.
Right.
And just like with the artist trading cards, people have used all kinds of background, and I don't think they've even got as creative as they can be with the types of bases that they're going to use. We generally use cardstock because it can fit in that, in the little plastic sleeves that you can get to keep it protected. And so that size, they make them for that size for anything, baseball trading cards or game trading cards, anything like that. And, as long as you don't make it too thick, it can fit in that, but it doesn't have to be thin like that. I prefer that if I'm going to do a group trade, because you have so many and you can't really guess how heavy it would be if somebody decided they wanted to do that on a clay block or something, As long as it was 2.5 by 3.5, you could say it was a trading card, but it wouldn't go well through the mail. So if you were one-on-one, that might be an easier thing to do. Or leather, some of these artist trading cards have been done on wood or clay or leather or fabric, And so I think that most people, though, are sticking to a cardstock type base.
Okay.
And then building from there. But you'll have this, what I would say, like the first category, kind of looks like it might be in like an art gallery, a tiny art gallery. And then you have some that have more of a scrapbook kind of look and use a lot of the techniques that you would find in a like things that you would find in a scrapbook store. And that's probably where some people shop for some of their embellishments and things. And so they kind of have a little bit of a different look. And even in there, you have a wide variety. And then some that are really kind of like calling cards, where you have your signature stamp and you just set it off in a nice artistic way on the front of the card, or just a real simple way, where you might just simply frame your signature stamp. And then people have, they have different tastes in what they like to create and what they like to trade for. They don't all, some people really love just a simple stamped image, and some people really like the embellishments. So it really varies. But I would say would be the basic types of things. And you can look on the internet and find ATCs and get a good idea of the variety of techniques that people use. But basically, it's that simple, the simple size, the dimensions, and then building from there. With sometimes people will mat a background or just set off an image, or they've done quite a few very creative things. Made pockets, used vellum on top, or it just really depends on the creator. And but there's a wide range of things that people can do if they just sit and think about it a while.
Certainly one of the big aspects of letterbox trading cards is the trading aspect. And one way to do that is through a group swap. Can you explain to us what a group swap is and how that might be organized?
Well, let's say I was doing a group swap. What I would do is post on there, say, a theme or maybe a themeless swap, and just say anything you want to make. Mm-hmm. And I would let people know that I was going to host that. And they would create, let's say I said, well, we'll have 20 people in the group. Then each person would create 20 identical cards and send all of those cards to me. So I would be at home with 20 stacks of 20 cards. And then they're also asking to either send a self-addressed stamped envelope or, say, enough postage for me to put back on their mailer to send it back to them. And I would take one of each of those piles and create a set for each one of the participants. And then I would take that whole set, put them back in their mailer or in their self-addressed stamped envelope, and send it back to them. So for the 20 that you sent, you ended up with a set of 20, which one would be yours, but the other 19 would be from other letterboxes. It's real simple.
It sounds exciting to get an envelope with 20 different things in it.
It's really wonderful. It's beautiful. I sit down, and I don't know that my husband completely understands my delight in it, but my children do. And we sit down and we spread them out, and we ooh and ah and get excited. But it's really fun to be the host of a group because you get them all in. It's like big, like Christmas when it comes in. It's really fun.
What do you like about making and trading LTCs? What excitement do you get out of it?
Well, I'm one of the ones who leans toward the stamp being the focal point. Not that even all of mine have it as a great central point of the image, the design that I've made, but I love seeing the stamped images from people that I wouldn't, let's say someone in Washington State, I wouldn't likely get over to Washington State from Louisiana to be able to letterbox. Yeah, I hear of these great carved images, or even, just the fun that people have with their stamped images, and I love to see the variety of the different images. Sometimes I'll go to the photo albums on Atlas Quest and just look through the signature stamps just to see the variety, and I love that. So for me, my favorite thing about getting them is just to see the creativity of everybody involved. And then making them, too, it's not easy for me to get out and plant. I've planted several letterboxes, but it's also fun to be able to carve and to do something with that stamp image without having to go through the whole process of hiding it and everything. And sometimes I get attached to stamps that I don't really want to let go of. So that's my favorite part, is really the soft block carving. I just enjoy that so much.
Now, I've made a few LTCs, and one of the challenges that I've had is the repetition, doing the same thing over and over. And I know I've got a couple big swaps coming up where I've got lots to make. Does that become tedious for you, the repetition of creating the cards?
Sometimes I'd want to break. I like the smaller, maybe 15 to 20 at one time, but I don't mind going back and making that same one later. But to sit in one setting, I'll give you an example. The very interesting ring that's going on right now is the periodic table of the elements. Did you see that one?
Right. Yes, I'm in it.
So I thought about that, and I thought, there's no way that I could, there's just no way I would want to be in one. I certainly wouldn't want to host that. I just had this vision of, having enough. Oh my goodness, I could wallpaper my house with as many that must be in that person's home when they all come in. But I could not do that. I just wouldn't want to sit and stamp 100 times, make 100 cards of the same thing at one sitting or in one close period of time. But there's some that I would be willing to make over time, that many times. If it's something, I have one that I change. It's called Feeding Louisiana. Whenever I plant a letterbox, I poke a hole in the stamp on a map of our state.
Oh.
The stamp changes periodically. When I get another one planted, I have another dot on that stamp. And so that is one that I'm going to keep long term. That'll kind of mark the progress of my letterboxing experience. But also, some people really, they have no problem sitting down and doing that. So that's probably a real personal question, and you might get a different answer depending on who each person you talk to.
Why do you think the interest in LTCs has taken off the way that it has? And do you think that LTCs is kind of a fad, or do you think that this is something that's here to stay?
Well, it's more than, I would say that it's probably here to stay, but that would be just a guess on my part. As artist trading cards have been, they've been in existence for a while now, And so there are a lot of people who do the carving who delight in that, and I could see they're doing this long term and enjoying it. I know Batty Girl's trying to have every single one that's ever been made.
Right.
But I don't know how, just like with letterboxing or any other aspect of letterboxing, I don't know how many people are going to dive in and, stick with it for the long haul, or how many people are going to just get tired of it. I don't know. I enjoy it. I can't, as long as I don't do it constantly every day, and that's what I'm thinking about all the time, I could see myself doing that for the long haul. And I think Ryan sensed that it would probably be something, somewhat permanent, or I don't think he would have created that row in his profile,
Right.
I think it is. I think that, like, boxing buddies are a little more complicated. You mail off your boxing buddy, and it may be who knows how long before you see it again. So you don't have the same immediate satisfaction that you do when you trade these cards. I think that's part of it. But there's a lot of quick satisfaction with LTCs that you don't get with some of the other, the others that have come and just haven't really. And I'll give you an example. When we first were talking about LTCs, someone brought up the idea of taking a puzzle and sending all the pieces of your puzzle to, say, however many people in the group, and they would decorate that piece of the puzzle, and when you got it back, you'd have all these pieces, and you'd have a puzzle, but each piece would represent someone else. And it sounded like a fun idea, but I can't see that. It's just much more complicated. I can't see it holding and I don't even know whatever happened. It was happening at the same time the LTCs just started, and I really haven't kept track of that to see whatever happened to it. But I think because these are simply made and simply traded, that might help them might help with their longevity.
Yeah, and the single cards that I've traded in the mail, oftentimes I get the card from the other letterboxer even before I've gotten mine in the mailbox yet.
Well, it does. Some are just cranking these things. They're like machines. I don't know how they do it. And they have systems set up, very nice systems. Some have them in envelopes ready to go, and when the card comes, off it goes. And some have spreadsheets done. So for those that are doing constant creation and constant trading, they really do have some nice systems set up to help them keep track and make sure that they get it. But it is, when they come that fast, it really is very satisfying.
Recently, there was a post saying that LTCs might be replacing postal letterboxing in some way. And certainly there was more posts on the LTC board than there was on the postal letterboxing board of late. Do you think that there's some credibility in this? Do you think that this might be true, that LTCs might replace postal letterboxing in some way?
I don't think they'll replace it. I know that there are some that have totally switched from postal letterboxing to LTCs. And I think they both have their advantages and disadvantages, but one of the things that makes it an easier thing to do, I would think there are about 3 or 4 different reasons why some might switch or do both or do less postal letterboxing. I don't know that many people have totally abandoned postal letterboxing, but the cost is definitely, when I say that, I'm thinking more in terms of group trading and rings, if I were to compare those two things, because the individual postals that go out, I would say that you might see less rings, but you might still see as many singles going out with postals. But the cost of participating in a ring is significantly greater than participating in a group swap. It could, group swap could cost you, it could cost you as little as, say, $5, for your sending out your stuff, getting it back, and the creation of it. Whereas, and now some of them would be much more expensive than that if they did a lot of embellishments that they bought and things like that. But one ring of the same amount of, say it was 20 people, that could run you up to $40 or more with a postal ring. So I think the cost might have some people being a little more eager to do this. And then also the risk of losing your stamps. You don't have that risk. You could lose your cards, but you could make more cards. But if you lost your stamp, that's it. You can recarve it. I understand that. But you know what I'm saying. You're waiting it's going all through this ring, and then it gets stuck in somebody's house that could stuff a mattress with all the bubble mailers that they're needing to send out, So so I think that the risk of losing, what you've made is less. And then and I think that you have. And I want a little disclaimer here. I've seen some really, really beautiful and creative logbooks with the postal letterboxing. I think it's really fun to watch that. But I think generally, in terms of the stamp image itself, you can get really creative with that, with the cards in a way that you can't with postal letterboxing. And then also you have the opportunity. There's not really, since a trading card is not a letterbox in any way, shape, or form itself, a lot of people are using the stamps that they've had in their postals that kind of have come back. Some people have done hundreds of postals, and they have all those hundreds of stamps now at their home, and a lot of them are using those to create LTCs now. So other people are going to be able to share the stamp image that happened before. Some people will create the LTCs and then go plant the stamp in a traditional box, or some might, the order really doesn't matter, and people have, they often ask those questions about whether or not it's okay to reuse a stamp, begin as an LTC and use it another way afterwards, or use it the other way and then use it as an LTC later. And it really, that's one of the things that there aren't any rules about. The only thing that we encourage people to do is to mention that in the clues. If you use it elsewhere, if you plan to use it elsewhere, to mention that someone may have seen it before, and if they would prefer not to trade for that card for that reason, at least they know up front.
Right, is kind of a spoiler.
Exactly. That's why I've encouraged people not to post image. I'm not going to post my images either way. I don't really care what other people do, but I just didn't think it was right for them to post images of that they had collected from someone else without their permission. But I like the mystery of it. I think most people do. They like to wait at least until they've seen the cards before they see the image.
What do you do with all these LTCs once you've collected them and or made them? And is there some sort of use that you can use for them?
Some people, in terms of what they use LTCs for, I know some people have used them for first finder certificates, and I've done them for virtual rewards. And there's a lot of ideas along those lines that people, if it was some kind of a greeting card, and some people will send Christmas cards out to other letterboxers, or they could do that in the size of an LTC. And some people did that this year. At Christmas time, I got a couple of surprise LTCs from some sweet letterboxers, and you do it in that size, and then you can go log your card. And a lot of people have, in the past have put that in another category, but this it's a fun way to put that in a loggable, LTC category. That's been fun. First finder certificates, like I said, sometimes the first solvers of a virtual letterbox. It can be rewarded with, with a certificate that's a 2.5 by 3.5 size LTC.
That's a cool idea. Well, Mama Cash, I want to thank you so much for answering all of our questions about LTCs tonight.
You're quite welcome.
And we should also mention that Mama Cash has a website, and that's called Mama Cash and Company Go Letterboxing. And there's certainly lots of information on the forums of Atlas Quest. Thank you again, Mama Cash, for joining us tonight.
You're quite welcome. Thank you so much for the call.
It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much. It's time for the Stampeaz Stumper!
Where's the place that you go for your carving needs? Where's the place that will ship it with lightning speed? And the price is so good you'll be on your knees on the web. Order from Stampeaz for your stamps, for your fleas, for your LTCs. What's the site that makes ordering such a breeze? And the image on the invoice is sure to please on the web. Order from Stampeaz if you're stuck in a rut with a nib or a cut and you're feeling like you don't know what you can do to pursue a breakthrough. Get a clue and just order you some peasy cut, and you can prove to the world that you are the best if you can solve the Stampeaz Stumper contest. To find better stock, you would be hard put. You can get new knives, you can get logbooks, you can get ink pads that are black as soot at Stampeaz, because you get Webfoot. Where's the place that you go for your carving needs? Where's the place that will ship it with lightning speed? And the price is so good you'll be on your knees on the web. Order from Stampeaz.
Welcome to our first Stampeaz Stumper, our new contest in which you can win a $10 gift certificate to www.stampeaz.com. Each episode, we will have a new riddle, puzzle, or question for you to solve. If you know the answer to this episode's stumper, you can email it to letterpod@atlasquest.net. This episode's stumper is a riddle submitted by Phynstar and read by Lundy. Listen closely.
I am just a man, many walk through me. my back to the west as a snake has me flee. I wear a hat on my head and boots on my feet. United the five stand, never taking a seat. Imagine that I make pancakes for a feast. My body and soul are facing east. I am flat and yet I have girth, you will see. Can you name that which makes up me?
Again, if you know the answer to this episode's stumper, email us at letterpod@atlasquest.net. We'll pick one winner from all of the correct answers we receive. All correct answers must be received before the next episode so we can announce the winner. Also, as a special promotion for all of our Letterpod listeners, when you order from Stampeaz.com, mention the Stampeaz Stumper in the comments section of your order screen, and you will receive a special stamp image on your invoice. I want to thank Webfoot, Phynstar, Lundy, and also What's the Matter You for the Stampeaz Stumper theme song. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for listening to the Letterpod. We welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions at our Yahoo group. That's the Letterboxing Podcast. And you can also check out our website. That is letterpod.podbean.com. Thank you. See you all next time.